Lions and Tigers and Bears, oh my. I think you mean Kahleah Copper, Alyssa Thomas, and Natasha Mack, oh my. All that and more right after this quick break on the Phoenix Mercury podcast. What is up, PHNX Mercury fam? I am your host, Erika Day, joined by my esteemed PG1, QB1, on and off the field, in and out of the studio, on and off the court, Stephen Pridgeon Garner. And, one day belated birthday boy. How the heck are we on this fine Monday afternoon?
Doing great. Hoping that some great news is on the way for the Mercury as far as the to have the facilities of multiple top end pieces that they're looking to build their roster around. It feels like it's looming at this point, but we'll find out more details throughout the week. But needless to say, it feels refreshing for the team to have had multiple days off that they can look forward to throughout this week. And I feel like that's kind of setting more of a tone than anything else, just being allowed a little bit of a minute to breathe. So I'm doing good. It sounds like the team is in a good place. How are you doing?
Dude, we didn't even talk about the fact that Satu got a freaking puppy. That means she is stuck in Phoenix. Getting a puppy's like basically having a kid. So all I feel is that free agency no more. We talk about the offseason of movement to come for the entirety of the league, but I just feel as though Satu getting a dog, from.
That's crazy. We got it happen second time in about 5 minutes. But yeah, we got a lot to get to on this episode. Needless to say, there's been a lot going on in Mercury Land, and they finally have some time to kind of decompress and kind of regather themselves in the literal sense, but also figuratively. And then kind of check forward with only having 2 games this week. First one being on Wednesday against the Dallas Wings, and then the final one of this technical week coming on Sunday against the Las Vegas Aces on the road for that one. So as we kind of wait for Erika to come back around, I'll go ahead and kick things off with a little bit of news. We did find out.
Wait, Stephen.
What's up,
Before
bro?
you get to all your elite savant level ball knowledge, I think I'll take this opportunity to let the chat ask the question through me that they really want to know while Erika's gone. What did you do for your birthday?
Very boring answer. I did absolutely nothing. But if you know me,
that's a great answer, though.
If you know me, that's a sensational answer. That's something I hardly ever do. About less than 5 times a year, I actually do that. So that's me being intentional about detaching from almost everything and just kind of breathing for a minute, responsibility free. So blessed to be able to have the opportunity to do that with no games taking place for any of the teams that I cover, and also no practices involved either. So I had a clean slate yesterday, took advantage of that, slept in a little bit, got a little rest. And then, yeah, kind of helped get myself ready for this week. So I appreciate you asking me about that, Kevin.
And we do have Erika back now.
Perfect timing.
Y'all thought you were going to get rid of me, but I'm back. Don't you worry. As you can see, we're doing the show a little different. I do live in Tucson. It's a big commute for me, so we're doing a little remote action on this fine Monday evening, but that's okay. We'll work through some little technical difficulties. That's why we have Kevin. You know what I mean? Angle had to change because my whole device changed. We're on my phone now, so hopefully we don't face any more technical difficulties. But nonetheless, I'm really excited about today's episode. We are going to talk about Haley Jones, Nate Tibbetts. A lot. Obviously, I began the show with our little Lions, Tigers, and Bears, Kahleah Copper, Natasha Mack, Alyssa Thomas action. There's a lot to get to today. And so I feel like, Stephen and I have been talking so much about games and as, the Phoenix Mercury have had no rest, neither have Stephen or I, in regards to talking about basketball. So we're kind of excited to be able to have a little more of a speculatory episode than normal. Y'all know I really don't like to speculate on injuries and things like that, but I feel like given the circumstances that Stephen and I are about to open up and talk about, I feel like this is the one time of year where it's kind of like safe to talk about injuries. So, and kind of speculate about them a little bit. And as Mercury fans, I feel like it's kind of we've been waiting all season to finally be able to speculate about when these people are going to return. So I feel like as a little bit of a repayment for not talking about it so much, we get to talk about it at length today. So I'm a little bit excited about that. But without further ado, we got Haley Jones waiver to get to. I feel like we should start there. I feel like we can't really talk about the rest of this situation without opening up talking about Haley Jones. I think, Stephen, you've done a really good job talking about how much of an asset Haley's been to this team, but it's not really a shock to anyone, neither of us, I would think, that Haley Jones was waived. It was a hardship contract, and there was a little bit of gray area with the possibility of her staying the rest of the season. But I think as people were healing and, the team was taking its full form. I just don't think that there was room in regards to Haley Jones on the roster. But Stephen, your take on the Haley Jones waiver?
Yeah, it's the tough bit of contracts and transactions on the WNBA side because of the lack of space on rosters that Satu spoke explicitly about in Saturday's postgame, and understandably so. You get yourself in situations where you have talent the likes of Haley Jones that's simply not on a roster because teams just don't have the capacities to do so unless it's because of injury. And that only has such a long shelf life if it's not a season-ending injury that player is coming into a team in place of a specific player. So that just speaks to a larger issue that I'm sure will be addressed going into next season and going forward as the WNBA continues to ascend. But Haley did everything this team could ask for. And I think it's not out the realm of possibility that she potentially returns to the team in some capacity going forward, whether that be via injury or any other type of transaction that could take place with the team. I think that she did an excellent job with the role that she was asked to play in an on-the-fly fashion. She had, I think, literally one practice in the 3 to 4 games that she played with the team. And just as ridiculous as that sounds, the fact that she was able to just integrate herself so almost seamlessly, it just speaks to the type of player that she is. And whether it's with the Mercury or with some other team going forward, she's going to be impactful for someone else in the not too distant future. And I think she's a player that really matches with the types of players that the Mercury are looking to bring in with their team. And also has a ton of like kind of versatility and things like that they in the ways in which they use Satu and Alyssa in particular. So I could certainly see her being back in some capacity. It remains to be seen, but best of wishes to Haley. Extreme professional. My first chance to talk with her came at practice this past week. And yeah, she was as personable as her energy gives when you see her on the camera.
Yeah, and not to feed into any of my further points, but from previous episodes, but she is a champion at nearly every level she's played
Yeah.
at. So she brings some great experience. 3-time Pac-12 champion, 1-time national championship in college versus my own Arizona Wildcats. Kevo, I hope that hurts you as much as it hurts me. But nonetheless, it's okay. To Steven's point, she's gonna find a home.
Yep.
She is a very versatile player with great size and great handles, and we saw it over and over again in Phoenix in the very short time that she was here. So I have no doubt in my mind that, Haley's going to find a great home, whether it be back here in Phoenix. Who knows? She might be a new member of the Sparks in no time. You never know what can happen in these WNBA transactions. So I'm excited for Haley Jones' future, whether it's here in Phoenix or somewhere else.
I'll say if for whatever reason she can't or doesn't come back to the Mercury, who should be giving her a call is the Golden State Valkyries, because she's every bit of a lot of what they're looking for. I know they just brought back LA, and I think that was important. I'm glad to see that. But they could certainly use more versatile front court depth, and she matches the style of play that they play with, just free flowing, all type of activity on defense, and wanting to get out and play in the open floor. And we saw that in spades against the Las Vegas Aces of all teams over the weekend, much to the surprise of many, including people that cover the Aces. And I think that just speaks to the type of culture that Natalie is establishing over there in Golden State, and the way that things are slowly getting to where they happen to be at in this moment. But she's getting the buy-in from her players, and they're answering on a near game-to-game basis, because they might not score a lot, but they're going to defend. And that's something that Haley does as an individual identity piece. So she matches with them for sure.
Well, and Haley brought something that the team really needed at the time, which was really just size. I feel
Yeah.
like so she came in, did her job, and to Steven's point, was a true professional. So anyone that gets Haley is going to be lucky to have her, and we were lucky to have her for the short amount of time that she was here. Y'all heard my excitement when she signed with the Phoenix Mercury, albeit temporary. It was a time was had, if you will,
Yeah. She made the absolute most of it. And I feel like she built some relationships with players that she may not have had prior to her time where she was here in Phoenix with the Mercury. Well, not literally here for the whole time, because most of that time was on the road because of the way the schedule was set up. But you get what I mean.
Well, and I mean, this leaves room for speculation as to who exactly is going to return this week. I feel in my bones that by the end of June, we will have an entire Phoenix Mercury team, including the entire Big Three plus Natasha Mack. But I feel like by the end of this 7-day period, when the Mercury play the Aces on Sunday, I feel like we have at least two of those three players that are out back, whether that be AT and Mac or some other combination of the three, but I really feel like we're in good standings to be moving toward proactivity and getting some players back where we need them.
Yeah, so for full transparency, the news that both Kahleah Copper and Natasha Mack will be out for varying amounts of time, that news released on May 17th. And on said day, it was reported that Kahleah Copper would miss 4 to 6 weeks with the left knee arthroscopy, and then so basically off of that template of time, the soonest that she would return was for the game on the 15th. That's to come against the Las Vegas Aces, which would be obviously this upcoming Sunday. That happening, that would be 12 games into the season for Kahleah. Now with Natasha Mack, she was slated to return at the earliest June 1st, which would have been last weekend against the Los Angeles Sparks, which was a road game. And that would have had her coming back to the team from her lower back injury 6 games into the season. So we're a little bit further into that spectrum of time that Mac was kind of put on, but getting around to that time where we could start to anticipate Kahleah Copper being around. I can report that both players, maybe not necessarily with the team doing team activities, but both players have been active doing things at practice in the individual respect rather, doing things specific to their style of play, to their skills. And they've been at that for a handful of days now. So I'm not reporting as far as saying they'll certainly be back, but I'll say they've taken great strides towards the right direction, which can be assumed that they return to the court relatively soon. So keep an eye out for news on that. Obviously, we'll have you updated as soon as news does surface that we can report. But in addition to those two, also Alyssa Thomas has been active as well. Again, not saying that she's going to be back for Wednesday's game or even Sunday's game. That's not for me to say at this moment in time, but I can say that all three of the injured players for the Mercury have been active on an individual standpoint at practice, to the extent to where it suggests that they're turning corners in terms of their road to recovery, and then also being able to condition themselves to then return to the court. And I think it was funny to see last week, not this tweet, Kevin, but Natasha Mack had another tweet where she was saying that everybody always says that Alyssa Thomas, she called her AT, is different. But it was on this specific day that she realized, when she made this tweet, that she realized AT is different. And it's because of how hard she goes, the conditioning level, the athleticism, the attention to detail, and just the general level of urgency. Alyssa's already an all-time great. And the fact that she still has the hunger of a rookie that's trying to make a roster speaks to everything that she embodies as an individual talent. And I feel like Mac was kind of having a full circle moment and realizing these things, that she's doing workouts kind of in tandem with with Alyssa Thomas at practice the last couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, and then Kevin, I guess we should just go ahead and bring this other Mac tweet up where she's talking about the countdown to her return. M- Mac said, "Let the countdown begin. June, star, star, let's go." And listen, Natasha Mack had an Instagram story about a month ago or so, I'd say, that had a note from her significant other that hinted that Mac is looking at that most improved player award. Not only looking at it, but hunting it. And so she knows there's game requirements to that. And so she knows what's expected of her in order to be eligible for an award like that. And so it just leaves me pretty optimistic that we are headed toward a Mac return. And the other two players that we're talking about, Alyssa Thomas and Kahleah Copper, the thing about those two is they're so plug and playable that it leaves me with so much less stress about their return. But with Mac, she is still a younger, more developmental piece in this Mercury system. So the sooner we can get her back in playing with this team, I think the better.
Yeah, I think you said that extremely well, and I think like I love the ambition. This is very much Natasha Mack stepping into her own and being in a confidence level because of the work that she's putting in. You wouldn't have heard her speaking about awards last season, as she was just a little bit more, I'm not even going to say shy, but just more reserved. It feels like this is a butterfly kind of breaking out of the cocoon and really starting to step into her own. That feels like the space that she's operating in right now. It emanates from her energy when she's talking to media, yet alone from her literal play on the court that we can assess. As she does things with much more confidence. She's not walking on eggshells. She's playing off of instinct. And for the style of player that she is, that this team is going to need her to be to get to where they want to be, she's directly aligned with where they want her to be as an individual. And it's permeating through her teammates and they're instilling her with more confidence than she's already bringing to the table on her own. That being said, there's a lot of seasons where there's a solid field to kind of expect to be involved with the most improved player award. This season, through 3 weeks, I think we all got a front row seat or in-person seat to seeing who is honestly out the gates and probably has a lap lead on the rest of the field for most improved. That is the one and only Gabby freaking Williams. And I think her 5 3-point make showing against the Phoenix Mercury in Saturday night's game, but also her defense in tandem with that, as well as her ability to get to the basket, really showed why she is leading that race so far this season. I think she was involved with a handful of names that would have already been included, obviously including Natasha Mack with that. And obviously the game's missed dynamic is going to work against Mack, so she's going to have her work cut out for her to get there. But I don't think she could be better positioned to stake some claim and who's ultimately going to take home that specific award than this team that she's going to be coming into with the Phoenix Mercury, especially as they come back healthy. The multiple pieces that can put her in a position to be her best self in tandem with the timing of opportunity meeting preparation and the role that she's going to be playing with this team. It feels like a perfect melding of all of these things at once for her. And she's certainly going to have some say-so in that come this season's end.
Real quick for context, the WNBA requirement for awards, I believe, is 28 games played. There have currently been 10 games played, meaning she can only miss a maximum of 6 more games the rest of the year to be eligible for awards, just so you guys know.
Yep. And I know Mac didn't miss many games last season, so I can't imagine she has missed games in the plans going forward. Matter of fact, I know she doesn't. So we can knock on a little bit of wood that we can find around that she stays healthy the rest of the way through the finish line, because she's going to be very important for this team going forward.
I didn't know that Kevin was our official researcher as well as producer of this show, so I'm excited we have him on our side, man. This
I was
is
going to say it's part of my
nice.
job, but I didn't want to make myself too important at work accidentally, so.
You don't want to sign up for those extra responsibilities, Kevin. You really don't. But as we look at the other two players that also could be returning, I guess we should probably start with Alyssa Thomas because I feel like that one's probably the more timely relevant one. Again, this is all speculation because especially with the AT injury, there has been so little information around her injury and her timetable for return. But I feel like what the team has been able to do without AT has been impressive, but with AT running things on both ends of the floor, it's just going to be brought to a new height and that maybe we haven't seen before, especially with Mac in addition to her. The tandem of those two on the inside of the court is going to be really fun, and I don't see how this team can get any worse with the addition of those two back on the court.
Definitely no steps taken backwards. I think there's going to be a recalibration that has to take place because players that have been in specific roles since the season started, because Copper and Mack have not been around, will now have to not necessarily relearn, but kind of figure out how to bring those same elements that made this team the 6-4 team that it is now in a different role, where there's going to be less minute total that they're going to be kind of clocking over the course of games. Find ways to still have that impact while playing in a more condensed fashion in terms of volume of time spent on the court. So there's going to be some relearning, as well as obviously reintegrating said players into the team's philosophy as well on both ends of the court. Getting the communication level back to where it has been with the team that has been playing so far this season. Just little things like that in execution that they'll have to get by with, but I don't think it's going to take as long as we may have anticipated it would coming into the season. Just because they've gotten out to such a strong start as a team as a whole, you can feel the confidence when they're talking about the aspirations and expectations that they have from the external, but even more so when they're speaking to them knowing what their potential is as a team on the internal. And I think that shows in the buy-in that everybody has had into everything that Nate's been asking them to do. And I feel like that might just be throwing it off the backboard for our next topic as we transition.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I've been really excited to talk about this topic all day long. Listen, I don't think it's any secret on this show that I'm a Nate Tibbetts supporter. I'm a Tibbetts believer, even you could say. I think that there were some really harsh opinions on him when he was first hired here with the Phoenix Mercury, and I do understand certain opinions about him and why people have them. I'm a very understanding person, empathetic, if you will. But at the same time, I think that Nate might also deserve some of that same empathy and sympathy. And, this is his first head coaching position, first position coaching women, first position in the WNBA. And he's come into a really complicated situation last year with DT, BG, and then the Kahleah trade that happened before he was even hired. I won't say it was a mess that he came into, but he came into a situation that was already made for him. His bed was made before he even laid in it. And now this year, he kind of had his own calls as to what kind of pillow he had, what thread count he had with sheets. And so I think he's had his lay of the land in terms of getting to know the WNBA and learning what he wants in terms of his WNBA players and how he can set them up for success the best, which is why uh, ESPN, their own Alexa Philippou and Michael Vopel, I hope I said both of those correct, have him as the front runner for the Coach of the Year. Kevin, if you want to throw the screenshot up on the screen, should coaches on teams expected to play well be rewarded, or should voters lean toward coaches whose teams are overachieving? Neither choice is wrong, but the nod goes to Tibbetts, whose 6-4 Mercury have just the second most wins behind Minnesota and New York. Phoenix is doing this despite near total roster turnover, bark bark, and losing longtime faces of the franchise, Diana Taurasi and BG. Only two returning players for last season's Mercury, leading scorer Kahleah Copper and Natasha Mack, but neither have played a game for this team because of injuries. AT has still missed the past 5 games for the Phoenix Mercury, and still the Phoenix Mercury and Nate Tibbetts have had success, led by Satu Sabali and several players who are in their first season of the WNBA. First season of the WNBA, and they're seeing success. It leads me to believe that there's a certain someone at the top is doing their job successfully, and so it's tough to game plan when you don't have film for these players versus these players and so on and so forth. And Nate Tibbetts has done an impeccable job. To the point that Stephen was just making, he's instilled confidence over and over and over in this team. And I think that that's such an important piece, especially when you talk about the fact that we're talking about so many 29, 28-year-old rookies who have never played in this league before. So I think he's done an outstanding job. I know the Mercury have not beat a team over 500 yet, but the reality is that they've had a pretty difficult schedule comparatively to some of the top teams in the league. And so, they're beating, these teams that weren't expected to be good, aka the Valkyries and the Sparks. But let's not like throw shade on these Valkyrie and Sparks names, because these are good teams that are going to beat other good teams. Look at the Valkyrie and their, let's call it what it is, whooping of the Las Vegas Aces. The Valkyries are a very good basketball team who are going to make it work in no time at all. And so, I'm very impressed with what Nate Tibbetts has been able to do with not only his new big three, whom of which two of three we haven't really seen on the court together, but also everyone else around them. So hats off to Nate Tibbetts.
Yeah, head coaching is certainly not, it's not a fair position to be in, because when the successes of a team typically come around, general discourse typically gives most of the credit to the players. And when a team is leaving more to be desired, or underwhelms, or severely underwhelms, or just generally doesn't perform well, the typical scapegoat is immediately the head coach for not doing XYZ or not considering ABC. At what point do we as media and do we as people who consume basketball not make those things mutually exclusive to one another? Sometimes a bad team can be well coached and the execution just quite literally is not there. We saw that on the other side of the basketball in multiple respects this season with the Phoenix Suns. Yes, coaching wasn't good over there, but the players and the execution also wasn't there. That being said, to have generated the buy-in that Nate Tibbetts has so far this season already, all while having to navigate multiple constraints of injury adversity, and still having his team exude the qualities, the characteristics, the style of play that him and his coaching staff need them to lay the foundation level of everything that it is that they desire to succeed with this season, that can't go unignored. Yes, Sandy Brondello, and yes, I don't even touch on that, but Sandy and Cheryl have done a sensational job this season. What I will say is they have not had to navigate the same waters that Nate has had to. Nate's had a whole lot more of the turbulent waters, where theirs has been a lot more still. Where Nate has had a lot more newness, they've had a lot more continuity. The context could not be more different in that front. And the lens I'm speaking to with that, those two certainly deserve credit, and I'm not taking anything away from them. All three coaches have been the three best coaches in the entire W so far this season, just by my assessing of everything. But the one that had to get his out the mud to get to where his team is, having the third most wins of the season, I think it needs to be, because we're talking about 3 weeks, not a full season, I think it needs to be valued a little bit more, because his waters in terms of navigating to get to where he's at has not been as point A to point B as the other two. So it's still far too soon to kind of speculate over awards in general. So it feels very premature to be having the conversation. But since it was brought up by ESPN, I feel like it's a good time to give some flowers to Nate, because him and his coaching staff have had to work 10 times as hard as others to get to where they're at now. And because of it, as I mentioned in each of our last 2-3 episodes, it's allowed them to get more information and to work in uncomfortable ways, maybe sooner than they expected because of the lack of bodies that they've had. But all for it's going to make them a better team going forward. And we'll now be hopefully potentially seeing them implement those new findings while also having a full deck to kind of assess things from going forward as this week progresses.
Yeah. Again, if you watch this show, you don't have to be convinced that I'm a believer of what Nate Tibbetts is doing behind the clipboard, but I just think that it's kind of being undersold a little bit. And the whole haven't beat a team over 500 thing would be valid if we were talking the same conversation in September, but we're not. It's June 9th, and the Mercury have played, I want to say, the most games in the WNBA so far, maybe the second most behind someone else, but they've played a pretty difficult schedule with two of their starters sitting on the bench. So I'm very excited for what's to come for the Mercury once they have all the squad back, plus Nate Tibbetts' full coaching staff back under him. But we'll talk about that real quick after this really quick break that's going to look a lot better than it did on Saturday.
For sure. Yeah, just to kind of round out things. Oh, is she back? No. Just to kind of round out things on the Nate part, or just generally on the awards part. We talked about Coach of the Year. Don't feel like we need to add too much more to that. I think one that was interesting, especially as I just got done talking about Gabby Williams in the Most Improved Player race, is also that ESPN had Big Al, Alicia Gray, as the leader in the Most Improved race right now. And I definitely misspoke. I got caught in the moment a little bit. Gabby has been going crazy this season, but Alicia Gray has been operating at a top 10 player in the W level so far this season. And that is a large reason why she should be leading. So I think the 1A to Gabby's 1B for me right now so far this season would be Alicia Gray. Erika, just informing the people on the Most Improved pick from ESPN's article that came out today, and admitted that Alicia Gray should be the winner through 3 weeks. She's the 1A to Gabby Williams 1B for me right now. What about you?
Well, I was gonna correct you, but I like to let you cook sometimes, so I just let that one go because I knew you'd eventually come around. But I do owe Mountain America Credit Union, so we gotta for real take this quick break right now. So all that and more after this real quick for real break. I owe them one. I got to make up for the atrocity that I left for them on Saturday evening. So, My Style Lifestyle, I don't know if you're not familiar, but Mount America Credit Union is committed to helping their more than 1 million members at 100 branches throughout the West. You can get more than 2 times the points on rewards credit card purchases through July 31st. Use your Mountain America credit card and watch the points pile up. It's perfect for gas, groceries, travel, home projects, and all other purchases. This promotion is an easy way to stretch your dollar since you earn twice as many rewards. Redeem your double points for rewards like travel rebates, gift cards, and event tickets. This is limited time only. You'll need to take advantage of it while you can. Loans on approved credit offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Limited time offer, terms and conditions do apply. And then my good friends over at Circle and K. Man, if you've never heard me call it Circle and K before, I'm so sorry, but it is Circle K, but it's Circle and K because I'm circling it on every single road stop I'm going on. Man, I need my Polar Pop. I need my freaking gas. I need all the chips that they have. I don't know what Steven's favorite kind of chips are, but mine are their jalapeno chips. Slurp slaps. I need them in every single bag size they've got. Got to fill my house in with those chips, just like PHNX Studios is filled with those chips. I'm a little jealous that you guys have unlimited access to the jalapeno chips, unlike myself. I have to actually go to the store to get them. But nonetheless, Circle K is America's thirst stop, and you can join the Inner Circle for free by downloading their app, putting in your email address and phone number to score the Circle K deals. You save 25 cents off a gallon for your first 5 fill-ups, then 3 cents a gallon every day off of that. And then you can work your way into the 5 cent a gallon off club like me, Stephen, Kevin. I know everyone basically in the office is in the 5 cent off gallon club, so it's a good club to be in. I can't complain about being in the club, so be sure to download the Inner Circle app today. You can join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions do apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. I heard that's what we're calling it on this show is details. Um, but anyways, yeah, Big Al. She's been running the show down in Atlanta, and it's been a fun time. If you watch this show for the last year and a half, you would know that this show is as big of a fan of Big Al's game as you could possibly be without actually having to rename the show the ATL Dream Podcast. So big shouts to Big Al. I hope she gets the award, but I also hope that Natasha Mack gives her a really good run for her money.
We're gonna be calling Natasha walking down Mac if she happens to come away with the Most Improved award this season. I don't think it's out the realm, but she definitely got some work to do because Big Al and Gabby got a lot going on with their respective teams right now. So I'm looking forward to kind of documenting that going forward. But that's probably one of the more fun races going on throughout the rest of the season. I think the other big one for me, before we transition, we kind of went off topic a little bit, the Defensive Player of the Year conversations. I think naturally, obviously, you hear a whole lot about Asia, and I think Asia was picked in ESPN's article. I think the one other player, though, that got a lot of attention, understandably so and rightfully so, y'all can get your emotions ready. Natasha Cloud. And everything that she's been to the New York Liberty through these first 3 weeks on the defensive end is no different than all of the value that she brought to the Phoenix Mercury last season. She's doing that and then some, and I feel like she's having a great time doing it. So shout out to Tosh Cloud. She's doing her thing over there. She's going to definitely be included in the DPOY race, no different than she was in terms of all defensive team selections, which she was second last season. Should have been first, but we'll settle for second on that. Alyssa Thomas, though, my point in bringing it up, once she gets back to playing games consistently, is going to, no different than any of the last 7 seasons at this point, have a significant say-so in that because, for one, her individual talent is unignorable in terms of a team's sustained success on the defensive end, but also the fact that she has a group of dogs rallying around her, including a style of play that lends itself to the defensive end first to set the table for his offense. Her spearheading a whole lot of that is going to naturally trampoline or springboard her right back into the thick of that race, and she'll have a lot of say-so in that come this season's end. If the Mercury get back to that top defensive team in the league space that they were operating in before she got hurt, and I think she was the DPOY before she got hurt, I think that award is going to again be hers.
Well, and I know again too soon to speculate too much, but do you think that there's a chance that if the Mercury remain a top 3 or top 4 team, that she could slide herself into the MVP race? Again, not really much different to the last 7 seasons of the WNBA.
You answered it. She's been there each of the last 5 years, and she's not gonna go anywhere else. Statistically, her numbers compared to last season and this season, obviously a super small sample size, but she's been better across the board. And a player that's already top 3, seeing an uptick in production and efficiency, yeah, she's gonna be firmly in the thick of all of the top tier awards, no different than she's been for the last 5-6 years now.
Well, I'm about to let Matt. Oh my goodness, these are 2 shows. I just could not get the words out of my mouth correctly. My gosh. Stephen, I'm gonna let him talk about math in just a second. I'm really excited because honestly, we haven't had a whole real math heavy episode in quite some time because we've been talking so much about real basketball that's happening. But there has been a few games without AT, but then every game without Copper and Mack, and there's been a lot to learn about this team. But if there's any one big takeaway that you hope that our viewers definitely learned in this time without the big 3 squared is kind of what I want to call them, just because it's a different big 3 than the actual big 3. So if there's anything you want to learn, you want our viewers to have learned about the Phoenix Mercury without the big 3 squared, what would that be?
It's that, well, I guess it would be twofold. This team identifies with the defensive end regardless of whose play is available and who's not available. Their identity does not shift with who is and isn't available. They still push their chips to the table on the defensive end. And it's also that this team is very resilient and also very stubborn and prideful in a complimentary way, to where regardless of if there's factions of the team that aren't available or the team is fully healthy, whether they're at a lead or they're at a deficit, they're looking to put a stamp on things and will not cross the finish line until they've left nothing more that they could possibly give to the game. And I think that multiple double-digit comebacks that we've seen from this team, a couple with Alyssa Thomas and then a few without her as well, speaks to just the general character of this team. This team has no quit in them, and they also are a team that's completely bought in. And what I mean by bought in is that when teams get pushed with adversity, whether it be via games or whether it be via injuries or other things that might come up, what a team decides to lean more into always gives you an idea of what the level of buy-in is. So where some teams say they're defensive minded and they get into an adverse situation where they're at a deficit, they're looking to put up more threes, score more points, and go off script from their offense to try to get back into the game. That is not the case with the Phoenix Mercury. Anytime they're at a deficit, anytime there's adversity, they double down on what it is that they have touted as their identity in defense, and they find success through that first and foremost and allow for that to reset the course of things over the course of a game. And that is, I think, especially for them to have that so early in the season with so many new pieces, especially, and also not having had multiple top end pieces available for the team. I think that's as clear of an indicator as where this team is and where they're headed as anything else that we could possibly take through these first 10 games.
Well, and to your point, they're never out of anything with, the 10 players that they've had, and they're not going to be without any or out of anything with the 10 players they're going to have here come to a week and a half. So I I think that the defense can only get better as this team gets to know each other more and has more reps together. Everything is just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up is kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any turning back at this point, especially as they get pieces back, whether it be comprehensively, all three of these players we're speaking to coming back, or if it's piece by piece. Maybe it's only Mack on Wednesday, and then she's followed by Alyssa on Sunday. Maybe it's all three in some capacity over these next handful of days. That remains to be seen, but the thing that we don't have to worry about is where this team is going to be identifying with on the defensive end and how everybody's going to be bought into that. And I think as a coach, to have understood what you can get the most out of this roster with, have all of your top end pieces aligned there first, and them then be able to set that tone through training camp and preseason play to the extent where everybody else from the 4th player on the roster to the 12th player on the roster, everybody's bought into that and understands that that's what if they're going to be good, this is where it's going to come from. To have gotten that type of buy-in so early in the season, we're not even a quarter through the season yet, it really just speaks volumes to the environment and the character of each of these individuals and how it complements one another when they get put into game situations.
Well, I see they kind of have a middle of the pack pace, and I feel like once you get Kahleah Copper and AT back, that pace is going to really improve, which is where the milk and cookies is really going to come for the Phoenix Mercury.
Yeah, for sure, because the style of defense that they play is active, is disruptive, is versatile, and it's stingy, very stingy. They don't want people to score. And the fact that they're, I think, 4th in points allowed per game right now at this moment, going into this next stretch of games, it just speaks to everything that this team is going forward and how their floor with multiple pieces being in and out of the rotation is still being an elite level defense. Being able to kind of bank on that, regardless of whatever might be happening on the other side of the ball, it naturally gives them a route to success, because when you compile as many turnovers on a per game average that they force their opponents into, that naturally allows you to play in transition. And that's where this team is going to always be at its best. The best advantage in basketball is transition and off of offensive rebounds. The fact that the Mercury can force teams into so many different turnover scenarios and just be chaotic with their defense is going to allow for them to play with more pace. And the more possessions that they're able to generate, obviously it gives them more opportunities to score, but it also gives them plenty more opportunities to force their opponents to turn the ball over as well, which leads to them scoring.
Well, and I don't want to spend too much time here because we got a few more things to get to before we get out of here today, but uh Lexi Held. And we've spent, I feel like, the last 3 episodes like hammering about how important Lexi has been to this team and how consistent she's been, which is, I think, being again kind of undersold because of how hard it is. Probably I'm not Lexi Held myself, but so I'm speaking for her a little bit, but I can imagine it's pretty hard to be as consistent as she's been, considering her role kind of changes game to game in terms of minutes. She's doing the same thing every game, but her positioning might look a little different in terms of flow of the game. And so I've been really impressed with Lexi Held. And I know we talked about it in the last show about how, the rookie of the year metrics are what they are, but she's at least lent herself an opening to being in the conversation, I feel like.
Yeah, she'll be in the conversation. Obviously, there'll be more allowed names that get more minutes when their teams are all coming back healthy. So I think more than anything, it's going to be the minutes total that works against her level of production to kind of go up against those players. But as far as her role and everything she's being asked to do, she's doing that and then some. And the last 3 games, she's averaging 28 minutes. Obviously, some of that because of injury, but also that's complementary to how well she's been playing, and they're feeling like she suggested that she needs more minutes. 18 points a game over these last 3 games. 34.8% from three on 7.7 attempts from deep a game. Very, very efficient numbers. In addition to that, 2.7 assists per game, 2 steals per game, and again, just generally from the field, she's efficient. She's getting to the rim. She's locking things up on defense, pressuring the ball 90 to 94 feet. She's getting steals from the pressure that she's setting the tone with from her defense. But she's also, if she's not getting the steal, also putting her teammates in position to be successful because our offense is starting later in the clock or they don't have the rhythm that they necessarily want, which lends itself to things being out of rhythm after an initial action happens. So Lexi's just been very important for this team. She's arguably been their most valuable over the last handful of games just because of how well she's played in her role. And they don't get the comeback wins and even just the general level of production that they've gotten from their reserves without Lexi stepping up in the ways in which she has.
Yeah, she's been awesome. And one more point on the steals. I feel like in particular, yeah, she scores points really well throughout the entirety of the game. But her steals come at times where the opponents seemingly need to score or they are out of the game. And I feel like that, again, another undersold aspect of her game is how she's able to do what the team needs in a very, very timely manner in clutch moments that mean the most.
For sure. And I think it's her being employed from her teammates, including the coaching staff, to be herself on the court. To where earlier in the season, I won't say she was shy, but she was less likely to put the ball on the deck because of realizing the talent that she has around her. Now, I think stemming from this allotment of games where they haven't been healthy and she's had to do more, when she is back in the role that this team was constructed for her to be in, she's not going to have any problem putting the ball on the deck, creating opportunities for others in moments where earlier in the season, it would have been either a catch and shoot or she's catching it and she's moving it to someone else. And that level of comfortability you don't get to without, obviously, unfortunately, injuries taking place. But that's the beauty of injuries taking place, is that it allows for people to step up. You learn things about players that you otherwise wouldn't have learned. And now your team is in a better position because of it generally, comprehensively. And I feel like that's something that Lexi's going to be able to take going forward. Also having the confidence that her teammates have seen her do these things and understand that for her to be her best self and to add to everything that they're doing, she has to be able to do these things. Taking the threes without hesitating, picking up the ball 94 feet, not being scared to get in the grill of players and opposing players and just stay attached to them. She has all of those qualities about her game.
Yeah, been really fun to watch her come into herself and kind of find her holding here on this team. I feel like she, at the bare minimum, has secured her spot for the rest of the season, albeit, wavering any injuries. But she, there is no rookie, I feel like, more safe in the league right now than Lexi Held. But
Yeah, especially for
nonetheless,
players that weren't guaranteed coming into training camp, for
right.
sure.
I'm like, dang, but we haven't had a chance. I feel like all season to really look ahead at the schedule for the week, and so I'm really excited this week because we have this Monday evening show, which I feel like is going to happen a little more often for the rest of the season. I won't say every week, we just go on days, what days they are. I can't ever tell you too many months in advance, but we go on a day every week. But this week we're on Monday, so we get to kind of preview things for the week for the Phoenix Mercury, and they're gonna start on Wednesday versus the Dallas Wings, which is extra fun for me because I don't know if you guys know this, but I host the DLS Wings show as well. So no matter who wins, I'm gonna get to rub it in somebody's face. I'm gonna be real with y'all though. If the Phoenix Mercury lose this game, I'm actually gonna be insufferable in the worst way possible. I cannot I cannot verbalize that enough for you. I need the Phoenix Mercury to put this one away. Okay. I would be okay with any other loss all season, but I need this one to just be, you know, almost a slobber knocking. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, put the stats up on the screen, Kevo. I know Steven's ready to do some math for us.
No, I got distracted because your choice of words made Kevin laugh and almost choke on whatever it is he's doing behind the camera right now. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch this team go up against Dallas because Dallas is a team that's hungry for wins because they haven't been getting that many over the last handful of games. They also haven't been playing the best basketball either, so they're itching to get back into good standing in terms of their style of play. With that in mind, we see them with Paige Beckers, who we don't know the status of quite yet because the game doesn't come until Wednesday, but They were expecting her to potentially be back over the weekend. She did not come back. So I imagine she's likely back for Wednesday's game. But they're averaging 81.6 points a game, which is not bad. It's about middle of the pack of the W. On the rebounding side, they're 6th. In assists, they're tied for 8th, which Coach Chris certainly wants them to be significantly higher up the ranks with. They're also 41.2%, which is 9th in the league from the field. And then lastly, 31.9% from 3, which is also 9th in the league. So their numbers are leaving a whole lot more to be desired, especially considering the talents that their roster suggests the level that they should be playing to. Naturally, some of that comes from Paige not being available for this team. Also, they've had multiple players that are now going to be gone because of overseas ties regarding Eurobasket and things like that. So this team will not be fully in capacity, nor will they be playing their best basketball coming into Wednesday. Erika, as our expert wings analyst right now, what are you looking to see from this game? And I'm curious, what stands out most to you about Dallas, and what do you kind of see playing out in Wednesday's game?
Listen, and I don't mean to throw shade on Dallas. Dallas was one of my first favorite WNBA teams. Fun fact about Erica, but they have so many defensive breakdowns. When I'm watching, going from watching the Phoenix Mercury last year to watching the Phoenix Mercury this year, yeah, there's been a defensive upgrade, but we had Natasha Cloud, and it was always fun on the defensive end. I never felt like there was a whole lot of liabilities on the defensive end. But when you're watching the Wings, there's going to be like 3 missed rotations in the matter of 10 seconds on their defensive end, and it is hard to watch at times. But nonetheless, they have shooters, so they can kind of get hot anytime. Also, I think what's fun about Dallas is yes, they have Enrique. Yes, they have Paige, but they also have Dejanay and Alyssa, who have been really good for them this year. And so, there are 4, arguably a couple of more players. Luisa has been fun, although I'm not sure if she's left for Eurobasket yet or not. I think that this will be her last game with the team before she leaves for Eurobasket. So if Phoenix Mercury fans get a chance to watch Luisa, and I'm not even going to try to say her last name because it won't be a pretty sight in person, y'all are blessed because Luisa is going to be a really, really fun, good WNBA player for years to come. But I urge you to err on the side of caution with the Enrique Page battle, though, because again, both of them can go off for a lot of points at any time. And so, to Steven's point, they're hungry and they want to win, and Paige doesn't like losing and she doesn't like watching either. And so I think that this Wings game on Wednesday is going to be pretty competitive on both sides of the ball. I hope that their defense improves because it's been a sight for sore eyes. It has made me literally want to pull the hair out of my head, especially considering I would get to watch this Phoenix Mercury. It's such a gift, it's you know served up to me on a silver platter 3 times a week with the Phoenix Mercury, good defense, and now I get to watch this atrocity happening in the Dallas. But I think to a similar point of what's been going on here in Phoenix, where it's new bodies, new players, there's even more newness in Dallas with a new coaching staff and then a new point guard. Okay, when you have a new point guard that is running the show for you and a player of Enrique's caliber on the same team, it does make things a little, I won't say hard to find rhythm, but you can imagine why it is harder to find rhythm when you have 2 people that are very much used to having the ball in their hands all the time on the same team. It becomes a little bit of a challenge. But I think as time goes on, there's no worry in my head that the Wings will make it work. Again, I hope it's not versus the Phoenix Mercury that they figure it out. But to Girth's point in the chat, Enrique likes to turn it up in PHX Arena. I don't know what it is about those nets, those hoops, those rims, but Enrique loves to go off there. We saw it in the All-Star game last year, and then I've talked about it multiple times this season. The Dallas Wings, for whatever reason, just had the Phoenix Mercury's phone number last year. And so, you never know what can happen in these games. Although the Wings are 1-8, don't sleep on the Wings.
I think one piece of why Dallas had Phoenix's number last season is now in Los Angeles, and that's Odyssey Sims. But yes, independent of Odyssey, Enrique just loves to see the bucket, period, regardless of what state, what city, what country she might be in. She's never met a bucket that she doesn't feel like she can't get, and her talent suggests why she feels that way. That confidence is loud, and it hits in loud waves as well. It's never just a one-off. It's usually one after another in succession. That being said, with Dallas though, I also have enjoyed watching Myisha Hines-Allen and everything that she brings to the game. I also have enjoyed watching Maddie Siegrist with the Dallas Wings.
How
Now,
did I
her
forget? I'm so sorry about that, Maddie. Please don't ever watch Maddie Seegers. If you were watching this show, just click off, click back in, and act like you never heard me leave out your name in that entire description of your team. Thank you so much.
For sure. Yeah, Maddie's played multiple roles for this team. Generally speaking, she's been good and very good, and pretty much nothing less than either of those two things for them. Her multiple efforts has been really good, especially in tandem with players like Myisha Hines-Allen. And I think them also not having players like Ty Harris, just because of multiple extensive injury, in addition to Paige, has really hit their offense in ways that their brand new coach and all of the newness that he's had to bring into their team context, it's just been very new for them. And to be new, but also be robbed of having the abilities of certain players in your game because of injuries so early on, it really stagnates your process. And I think that's a perfect example of why we feel like Nate and everything that the Mercury have been able to do through their first 10 games in a winning fashion should be valued, because on the other end, looking at Dallas, they've had similar issues of their own, and it has not been as pretty in terms of how they've navigated those waters. So that's why this is like a perfect example to look at that. But I think Girls Jr. also brings up a relevant point that I was going to get to as well. This is Satu Sabali's first opportunity to go up against the franchise that drafted her. Satu is a player that doesn't need any external motivation in any capacity. But whenever it might be around, I would imagine that it's going to have a different type of energy for her to come about in the game. In addition to them obviously coming off of a loss more than anything else, I think she would love nothing more than to have one of those unicorn type of games in an efficient manner up against the team that drafted her in her first opportunity to go up against them. Obviously, her and Erika have a pre-existing relationship. I imagine that's going to add some fuel to the fire as well, because dogs love to go up against one another as well. But it should be making for some fun basketball at PHX Arena come Wednesday.
I'm calling it now. Kalani 3 blocks.
That's relevant too. Kalani is probably going to look to have some fun in that matchup as well.
Well, then we got another fun matchup on Sunday, this time on the road. And I won't lie, when Kevin sent in these graphics, I had to double take. I had to make sure he had these right.
Yeah.
Stephen, you want to go through this for us?
Gross.
Yeah. There's a lot going on here with Vegas. Starting with the 80.1 points per game, having them ranked 8th in the league. Significantly lower than I think even at their lowest of lows anybody would expect for them to be at. In addition to that, also being 9th in rebounding at just 33 rebounds grabbed per game. 16.9 assists per game, which is dead last in the W. That's a number that certainly doesn't identify with anything that the Aces have been since Becky Hammond came into coaching this group. Second to last in field goal percentage. And the shot quality that comes in tandem with the shots that they are ultimately taking, I think speaks to the lack of ball movement that preceded that number that we're speaking to. And then to round things out, also looking at the 34.6% from three. This is just not the team that they're going to be at the end of the season. I can't imagine that in any capacity. But this is also a team with a handbit of newness added to their team context as well. Becky's still around, but the main pieces around her and Natalie and also Tyler are not there anymore, in addition to players like Kelsey Plum not being around. And there's just a lot of newness with their bench as well. They have a ton of newness with their team, and they're struggling to kind of find their footing in a sustained manner. They go from winning some relevant games the week before last to having only one game this past week, and a lot of preparation and practice ultimately leading up to a double-digit loss on the road to the Golden State Valkyries.
Well, and we can talk about the Las Vegas Aces as a whole, but I've been seeing too many strays thrown toward Chelsea Gray's way, and so I'm gonna need that to come to a complete and utter cease and desist as of right now, today, tomorrow. No more what shall I see any point guard slander on my timeline, because that assist number is going to go up period. Jewel Lloyd's going to figure out her footing in Vegas, and when she does, Chelsea Lloyd's assist number is going to, and so will everybody else's on the team as well. So I think the Aces are a game or two from figuring it out. That game against the Valkyries was the anomaly that we saw from the Seattle Storm in game one versus the Phoenix Mercury. And so I could go on for days about other anomalies we've seen so far in the WNBA where good teams are just getting beat, period. And the other team showed up to play better than them. And that was just the way that that game was going to play out. Vegas is going to come back around, I fear.
Yeah, I'm not going to count out or ignore Las Vegas. That's a team that, I mean, they simply put, they have the best player in the league. That is naturally going to always keep them in conversations. And I don't think that Asia is also going to allow for them to settle for this just being who they are throughout the rest of the season. There's no way. In addition to Asia, Becky will not allow for that. Chelsea will certainly not allow for that. And this team that's known winning as much as any other team in the league the past 3 seasons is going to get back into alignment with that in some capacity. And I think a lot of that is going to start with Jewel Lloyd finding her footing with the brand new team. She struggled to kind of fit into the new role that she's playing with this team. Obviously one of the better scorers in the WNBA. It's the ways in which she's being featured. A little bit more catch and shoot 3-pointers than she's maybe accustomed to playing to because she's been a player that typically has had the ball in her hands more the last 2 to 3 seasons. So there's been a lot of adjusting going on with them in addition to them playing a brand new style of defense as well. Doing a whole lot more switching and things like that. And that the demand that the volume of switching that they're playing to puts on their guards, specifically Chelsea Gray and Jewel Lloyd, it's a shift. There's a lot of adjusting going on, and it's taking some time for them to kind of, like I said, find their footing, especially on the defensive end, but that naturally lending itself to their offense as well. The moment they're able to get into a space where it's not as much Asia, can you throw your Superwoman MVP cape on for us at the end of possessions, and their assist numbers go up a whole lot more because of it. I think once they get back to that space, like Erika said, it might just be 2 games. They might be 2 or 3 games away from getting back there. They're going to be the team that they ultimately are expected to be, which is a middle-of-the-pack team that obviously has a ton of potential to punch up and find themselves back in the finals. And I don't think anybody would be surprised looking at what their roster is on paper by that.
Yeah, I mean, to count on a team with Asia Wilson on it is certainly a choice, but
Not
nonetheless,
mine. Not even a
yeah,
little bit.
it's gonna be a tough game for the Mercury, and we saw they played a close game versus the Mercury or versus the Aces, I guess I should say, in the first game of the preseason. So I'm excited to watch them revisit that matchup. It was a fun matchup in every game that they played versus the Aces last season. I don't feel like this season is going to be any different. So I think we got some good looks as far as good games and nice moments for rest for our squad. Above all else, it's a good week to be a Phoenix Mercury fan.
It most definitely is, and I think it'll grow more fun as we get news about who and when players will be back into the rotation for the team. So definitely be on the lookout for that news going forward. But yes, these are 2 good tests. Obviously, 2 varying levels of tests in terms of the rosters. The records are a little bit more similar than I think either of us would have expected once the Mercury got to this week's slate of games. But I think they're good tests, and I think the Mercury will be more than ready off of injuries not necessarily being as prevalent, but also off of time to rest and also watch film and sharpen up going into each game this week.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very excited to watch a rested, practiced Phoenix Mercury team. And to Steven's point, be on the lookout on our joint Twitter account, PHNX_Mercury, for all the updates. They have practice tomorrow afternoon. Steven will be there live in person, boots on the ground, if you will. Gonna be a lot of news, I feel like, headed our way over the next like 48 hours if you're a Mercury fan. So don't turn your phone off. Okay, D&D is a thing of the past. These next 48 hours are the utmost important if you're a Phoenix Mercury fan. So, nonetheless, have we forgotten anything today, Stephen? Oh, actually, rewind. We did forget something. We, you know, 2 games this week. We gave a prediction last week. I was wrong. We don't have to talk about it too much. I don't really like being wrong. That's okay. But the Mercury have a chance to be undefeated on the week, 0-2 or 2-0, if you will. So, how do you foresee this playing out for the Phoenix Mercury? What's their record come Sunday evening?
I think the Mercury go 2-0 this week, so their record improves to 8-4. And I think that a large bit of it is going to be what they've learned about themselves in the time where Alyssa and Mack and Kai were out. And that's a lot of usage of Satu Sabli, how to feature her most efficiently, most effectively. We've seen her do a ton of things, running pick and roll, a ton of even more so screening and pick and roll, especially with the ways that teams have guarded her with cross matching and with switching, and the ways that she can be effective in that, and also her teammates understanding how to get the ball to her in her spots at the best time for her to be successful. And then also on the defensive end, and the ways that which they've been switching a little bit more and adding a lot more layers of nuance to their defensive process. I think they've learned a lot about themselves in these last handful of games while they've been operating as only a certain percentage of the roster has been available. And I think they'll be finally presented with opportunity to have a more full effect of all the things that they've learned in tandem with the players returning back to the rotation. And we'll start to be able to kind of fully assess this team for who they ultimately will be this season as health kind of raises to the surface level again.
And I won't say this is the most confident I've ever heard Steven, but like it's really up there with that because, usually he errs on the side of caution, I feel like. And this week he's just given me even more confidence than I already had with the team. So, woo-hoo. If Steven's saying 2-0, I'm saying 2-0. We are ball up top for the team, okay? Because what the so nonetheless, I'm really excited. It's going to be a really fun week if you're a Phoenix Mercury fan. So like I said, tap in with us over on Twitter, PHNX_Mercury on Twitter. You can follow me at Erika Day. That's not my username. It's at Erika Lee Day. So sorry. And then Steven, who's Steven PG3, correct? Ayo, okay, I'm getting everything right today. And then you can even follow our producer at Kevo Post on Twitter if you want. He has some pretty funny thoughts sometimes, and he's really tapped in with the W these days. I know he's about to go on vacation. Word on the street is Mercury producers, they check in with the Mercury, they do like 3 shows, and then they just become boom, Mr. Vacation on the Flesh. It's crazy. I can't believe no one wants to be around us, Steven. What the heck did we do so wrong? I feel like we're pretty cool. We have a cool team, arguably the best basketball team in the Valley. I don't know if you are familiar with the Sun Devils, but they're not very good. Then they have the Suns who missed playoffs, and now us, and we're getting this treatment. It's crazy. I don't get it, but nonetheless, it's okay.
She didn't say
Lindsay
nothing
wants
about
me
U
to.
of A though.
Why would I?
That was an intentional omitting. I peep what you did there. I peep game, but you good. Cook up. Go ahead. Go crazy.
And Kevin's the producer for the Wildcats. I can't throw too much shade on the guy, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, yeah, it is crazy that he starts producing the Mercury and then boom, immediately just departs for vacation. I'm not gonna
I hope
lie.
your
The
vacation's
streets are
worth it,
talking.
Kevin.
I just knew I had to lock in for like the real season when AT, Mac, and Copper are back. So like I might take my little sabbatical, and then once the squad is fully healthy, we're gonna be back at it. And then I am gone the 26th or the 1st, but then we're not gonna talk about that. But yeah, I just gotta lock in.
I hope that's around the All-Star break, so it doesn't coincide too much, Kevin. So you better watch your rear end around that. So don't schedule no other vacations, especially come mid to late September. We're very booked around that time. Okay, I'm not making any September plans, and I expect the two of you to keep your calendars clear. Okay, we've got plans.
Yes, Miss Day.
Headed toward what is that? What is that word I call? Oh, parade. Sorry. See, that's what I'm telling y'all. Even the words I want to say out loud aren't coming out of my mouth correctly. Nonetheless, though, we got to work toward that parade. So no plans in September. Okay. Thank y'all for tapping in with us, though. It's been a great episode. We got another one coming for you guys on Friday at 11 a.m. So don't put anything on your Google Calendar for Friday at 11 a.m. You're booked already. Just as we're booked in September, you're booked on Friday at 11. So become a diehard while you're at it. First link in the description box below. You can tap in with us over on the Diehard Discord channel. You can also get this super cool Diehard membership card, a free t-shirt of your choosing. It's the best deal in the Valley. If you're a big Valley sports fan, you join a community of literally the coolest people on earth. We had a gentleman come up to us at the game on Saturday. Tom, I know you were in the chat earlier today. Shout out to Tom. He was asking me, "Oh, Erika, do you guys do any game meetups?" I got to give him the most excellent news that we most certainly do a meetup at every single game. Every single game, halftime, there's a diehard meetup. So you don't get that 411, the info slid into your DMs if you're not a diehard, though. So be sure to tap that link, become a diehard, and tap in with us over on Twitter. And we will see you guys on Friday.
We all silly like the mayor.